So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see contractors make? Like, I don't know if you have a list of things you're like, okay, this is the thing I can think of right off the top of my head, and this kills more contractors than anything.
Well, the setup in the beginning, you got to have the right setup. You got to figure out whether you're going to be a sole proprietorship, whether you're going to be an LLC, a partnership, or a corporation, and that decision is made with your accountant. When you sit down with your lawyer, he's going to talk to you about entities, but then he's going to say, you go to your accountant and have your accountant tell me what type of entity you should be. That's the most important decision, because once you have that entity, and say you set up a limited liability company, the reason you're setting up a limited liability company is you don't want your personal assets seized by a lawsuit. Okay, so they get a lawsuit against your company and they sue you. So you don't want your personal things. You don't want your boat and your house and your car and your things, your retirement accounts and all your funds and your cash in the bank seized. So when you set up that LLC, maintain the formalities of the company. And what does that mean? Well, that means you don't commingle your personal money with the company money. You don't take cash advances. You don't treat that bank account that's the LLC's as your own account. All right? This isn't a huge one, but the company truck is the company truck. You have your own personal truck, but the company truck is the company truck. The company credit card is the company credit card. You have the company insured to the amount of money that needs to be insured for. And you don't make it so that those formalities of the corporation are blurred and you and the corporation look like your own entity. And once that happens, then they can start to come after and sue you personally. Don't sign a personal guarantee. Can I say it again? Don't sign a personal guarantee.
How do I get away from it? No, see,
you can't sign a personal guarantee.
I feel like this is...
It's a trap.
I feel like this is exactly like that thing where you're dealing with bigger people than you, and kind of like the oil companies. It's Texas law, and that's the way it is. I feel like that's a non-negotiable, and most people are gonna require them. And if you don't want to sign a personal guarantee, great, we're not gonna extend you credit. Period. Doesn't matter how good your company credit is.
So the way the personal guarantee works is you've set up an LLC. The LLC is designed to protect your personal assets, but what do you need? You need a line of credit. You need a line of credit, all right? So you go to your local bank, and your local bank says, hey, we'll give you a line of credit up to $100,000 a year. You're like, well, I'm flush. This is great, except you got to sign this personal guarantee. And what the personal guarantee means is that your LLC is liable, and you're liable on that line of credit. Now, we've had this problem in our office, and there's banks here in town that require us to sign a personal guarantee, but there are banks that don't require us to sign a personal guarantee. So find a lender that will help you, that'll give you a loan without a personal guarantee. That may mean your line of credit's less. That may mean you're leaner at times. That means you might be using company credit cards at a higher interest rate. You know, there's risks there. You know, and the other thing is you got to make, your lender needs to be local, all right? Your lender needs to be local. So what you have to do is just shop around to other banks to avoid the personal guarantee. Just tell them you're not going to sign a personal guarantee. If you can't then get a loan with them, you go find another credit union or a bank that will fund you without the personal guarantee.
We've seen it more, and it's really prevalent in suppliers, like our suppliers.
Right.
The big suppliers are like,
right.
if you want a line, because what they're doing is offering you a line of credit. In essence, it's 30 days at a time or whatever your terms are.
You're not going to avoid that with suppliers.
It's
They're going to make
tough.
it. Yeah.
So you've got to manage your business in such a manner that doesn't ever come into play. You got to pay them on time.
Yeah.
And take care of things, and
you have to avoid the predatory lender as well. So
you were talking about this before the cameras were rolling. Now let's get into that, because that sounded like a big pitfall a lot of people fall into, and it just...
Now I've had this occur with restaurants, but I've also had it occur with contractors, and a couple contractors here in town. What happens is the contractor gets overextended. They're outside their line of credit. All right, they don't want to file bankruptcy. They've got good cash flow, but so they're making their bills, but they need some more. They need some more money to either buy supplies, to keep payroll, or something.
Stay alive.
Stay alive. So the banks are done with them, and so they get a predatory lender I can't think of one right now.
We call them payday lenders for business is basically what they are.
Well, yes. Yeah, they're payday lenders for business. And so they're not from Wyoming. You're not going to find one of these companies from Wyoming. Many of them are on the East Coast.
I can name a lot of them. Ask me how I know. There is a ton of them, and yeah, they're in California, they're in Delaware,
New Jersey's got a ton of them.
Like Michigan's got a couple of them, and I know that because I wish I didn't know that. It's one of those things. It's cost me a few $100,000.
It's horrible.
And the interest rate, it's not like they'll tell you, oh, it's 25% interest. It's not. They'll make it seem like it's 20%, 25% interest, but it's like, we'll loan you $250,000, but we're only going to advance you the $200,000. And then that $50,000 is our interest, and you've got to pay it back daily or weekly.
Yes.
In some cases, sometimes they'll do weekly, but it is. And you look at the actual interest rate, and it is like 60%.
And there's no regulation.
No.
So I've been involved with these cases, and I've tried to pull in the Attorney General's office, and I've tried to pull in other regulatory agencies. There's no regulation on those. And so they have huge interest rates. They usually want to capitalize on your cash flow account, so your operating account, and they'll take out daily amounts. So you don't ever have to worry about it, sight unseen, except it's $1,000 a day. I mean, it's a horrible amount of money.
And $5,000 a week, $20,000 a month, and this is on 150, because they want it paid off in like 6, 9, maybe 12 months max.
Right. And then when you default it, that interest just starts hitting you, and then they sue you, and they can get their attorney's fees and costs plus the loss.
And they're going off. They're basically running a numbers game, because they know a certain amount of these are definitely going to go bad. Right. But they're like, we're going to make so much money on these other people, and on the front that we're good. Yeah. And they're What I'd like to do is I'd like to start a business like that, because man, they make some serious money.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
you
horrible.
Must have missed the part where I talked about treating people like you'd want to be treated.
Yeah, sorry, I'm kidding. I've joked about a lot of things. I don't want anything to do with those guys. They're horrible.
Oh, it's terrible.
They're terrible.
They'll bankrupt you just like that.
They're payday lenders for businesses, and if you survive them, you're lucky. Yeah. I think. Yeah. And a lot of people fall because they'll offer you when you have your credit's bad, and they'll take the less desirables. And the other one I've seen and we've actually dealt with, I wish I hadn't, but I've dealt with, is people that do receivables financing or whatever it is.
Right. So they come in and they
factoring.
Yeah, factoring.
There we go.
Yes,
that's the term I'm looking for.
They factor money coming in, and then they let you borrow against that money.
Yep. And so all your receivables go directly to them. Yeah. It's almost like garnishing your bank account. And then if there's extra money left over after they've gotten their money, they give it back to you, and they'll send things to all your people that you do business with saying, hey, those receivable, when you pay them, don't pay them, pay us, and it goes to this lockbox. And like I say, I wish I didn't know this stuff. I wish I didn't, but I do.
Well, and there's a lot of internet companies. I've dealt with one here recently where they will get customers for you. They're called lead find companies, and they'll find leads for you. And then you have to pay so much, and your pay so much almost invariably exceeds what you ever make off of them. So
this is the worst. If you're thinking about just don't. There's nothing good that's ever going to come of that. And I know a lot. I see that question on Facebook so many times in these groups is, what do you think? And everybody's like, run. I've never used it. That's one of the very few mistakes I have never made. But have you ever had any disputes with subcontractors, like the general contractor? Maybe not even like a big general contractor, or not a small one, but like a big general contractor goes belly up, and then all these subs are owed hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right, and so then what happens is they file claims in bankruptcy court, all right? And they also then try to do liens on the property to get their money. The subs try to lien the property to get their money.
That's an interesting thing we could talk about.
Yeah, because that's not
public property.
That's not easy to do.
A school. Let's say it happens on a school.
Yeah.
In Wyoming.
Yeah, that's a trick bag.
Because we can't lien public property. There's no lien. Yeah, and the school district's going to be like, sorry, we paid him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the public stuff, and I don't know, I don't think that's everywhere. That's a Wyoming thing, but like, I don't think you could probably lien a federal property either.
No, I think your remedy there, you're limited to whatever you get pennies on the dollar in the bankruptcy court.
Yeah, so sometimes it pays to vet the contractor you're working for as well. They vet us. A lot of times we'll get pre-qualification paperwork from them where they vet us thoroughly, like what's your finances look like. They'll get our profit and loss and our balance sheet and bonding limits, and they'll get everything before they'll even let us bid the project. But we rarely do that for them, and there's some contractors that can get you.
Well, and interest rates aren't very high right now, but they used to hold on to the money for a while because they'd make money, interest on the money, you know. So they get paid on the job. The general contractor would hold on to that money a little bit, make money on the money, but interest rates aren't enough.
And we find that they still, I mean, the turnaround on commercial projects is usually from the pay application date. They're still usually trying to hold on to it for 45 days. I don't see people turn loose of it in 30 days like they should. And that's unfortunate because it should be 30 days. All the suppliers expect to be paid in 30 days. It causes a lot of heartache to.
Yeah, everybody's running on a level of credit to get the job done. And one of those pieces falls off, it really creates a problem for everybody in the chain. I love to find an employer who hasn't properly paid overtime. It's the easiest case there is. The easiest case there is. And I get my attorney's fees. When they get a lawyer, the lawyer says, ooh. That black book right there's a 2-volume set of that black book that talks only about overtime claims. It's the easiest claim, and people are still doing it. It's still a problem. And you'd think that the employer and the accountant would figure that out because the accountant's doing the payroll.
Can I tell you a story about overtime?
Sure.
I've been around enough. We recently, this is probably 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. So we thought, improperly, we thought that we could hire somebody to basically be a receptionist, office, you know, kind of work the front office and stuff and pay salary. Okay? I thought that's just kind of what a lot of people did. And it was somebody that was working 40 hours a week. And so we didn't really think anything of it. And
they're not punching in, so you're not recording the time.
No, actually, Veronica, who you know, was so thorough, she actually made her fill out a timesheet. And so she would submit timesheets saying that she actually worked longer than she did. So and it was like an hour a week or something. Well, whatever happened, she left and then decided not to go to the state, but went to the federal Department of Labor Standards and filed a case with them. And so we get the call and they say, you know, you didn't pay overtime for this person. We said we didn't have to. Well, yeah, you did because they should have been hourly, and we're like, all right, whatever, but they didn't work overtime. She gave us all these timesheets that said she did work overtime. We said, no, actually she didn't. We just didn't worry about it because we were paying salary, so we didn't bother calling her out on the lies.
Oh.
And so we went to that computer and looked up all the history because it was somebody that worked on the computer all day long. Looked up all the history, and we could see when the computer started going through files and when it stopped going through files, and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the time cards were falsified, not right, and still ended up paying overtime. The good thing is that because the amount of pay that we paid, it was so minimal.
Wasn't enough.
It was somebody that thought they were going to get like, oh, I'll get like a $6,000-$7,000 check, and it was like $400. And it ended up being one of those things where maybe he said it was $1,200, and I said, well, we'll offer you half of that to go away, and it was like $600. It was really very, very small. And he said, okay, well, we'll accept that on her behalf. But that's how we ran afoul, not knowing that we can. And I know there's a lot of people that pay secretaries and think that you can do that, receptionist, whatever, and do that salary, and you can't.
Well, when I have my employers in here and I say, hey, how are people paid? Well, everybody's on salary. That's a red flag. Yeah. No. Everybody can't be on salary. There's a problem here. We got to figure this out.
So I think that's another place people really want to put people on salary because of that overtime thing. That's right. That overtime. Not only do you pay the overtime, you pay the excess, you know, the work comp and unemployment. Every time the wages go up, so do all the liabilities, you know, the payroll liabilities. So there's a lot
as
of people,
the costs go up, you got to raise your costs on whatever project.
I want to pay my foreman overtime, so I don't ever have to have him, or on salary, so I don't ever have to pay overtime. And there are very few people that you can pay on salary, and they really have to be in management. That's really it. That or sales. Management and sales are pretty easy targets. But if they're outside of that. And management, we found, we're like, well, she's the office manager. It even said that. She even claimed she was the office manager.
She doesn't manage anybody.
Did she hire or fire anybody?
Right.
She didn't hire or fire anybody. She didn't make the direct choices to hire and fire. So calling her a manager was not enough. And so, like I say, that was our run afoul of the Department of Labor. And even though we could prove that her timesheets were falsified and she didn't work any overtime, we still...
The Equal Pay Act can be a problem too. Men and women should be paid equally. Lots of times people don't really consider that, and they don't structure it or keep their records in a way that it looks like, well, we start everybody at this starting wage, whether you're a man or a woman, and then that seniority-wise, this is how the raises worked. You really should have the more employees you have, the more structured that should be.
And we do that. So we start everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. If you walk in the door and you're going to be
Right.
a fence installer, it's $20 an hour.
Right.
Your first 2 raises are for the exact same thing. So it wouldn't, in our company, it would not matter whatsoever if you're female or male.
Right. Culturally, we live in a culture where we think that there's more discrimination now than there has been in the past. At least I think that's the perception. But when I started doing this work 20 years ago, there was some really awful things that occurred in the workplace. You know, derogatory speech, women were treated horribly, minorities were treated horribly, particularly in the construction industry. And I haven't worked construction in a long time, but I don't see those types of cases like I used to see them. So I think there's been an awakening that maybe the public perception isn't quite there, but I think there's awakening that people are a little better to people on the job than.
Yeah, and if you're doing any of that stuff, definitely don't, because they will feast on you.
Oh, and it's attorney's
You
fees.
lost.
If you discriminate, you get attorney's fees, and
I do work comp. I have one other thing I would like to talk to you about. The last thing I want to touch on is I feel like the workplace today, and it's really unfortunate. You were talking about how we're attacked from all the different sides. Everybody's just trying to pick away at our businesses. And I think in the construction business, one of the places I feel like they're attacking us the worst is on like accidents, work comp accidents. And the reason I feel that way is because we live in a safety culture where we don't feel like anybody should ever get hurt for any reason whatsoever. And if they do get hurt, no matter how many times you may have trained on that and how many safety briefings they sat through on that, it is 100% always the employer's responsibility and they're liable. The employee never bears any responsibility for that whatsoever.
well, and that's another thing that's so much different now than it was 20 years ago. There's a real focus on safety. Like I think job sites are a lot more safer now than they were 20 years ago. You guys have the safety meetings. You have safety checklists.
Oh, it's to the point of counterproductivity.
Oh, I don't know how you get the job done. There's so much different things that relate to safety that you spend so much time doing that it seems almost impossible to get the work done. So I think it's a safer workplace than it has been when I was working construction. I mean, when I was working construction, we'd dig a hole and we wouldn't put the safety cage in there. Never. And I just had a sewer line put in, and they had it in immediately. I mean, there was just no. But we've had cases here where the holes collapsed. Just 2 years ago, a lawyer in this office had a case out of Jackson where
I know. I remember that
collapsed.
killed somebody.
Yeah. So it still does occur, but
I'm not saying we should intentionally do that. What I'm saying is there ever a case from an attorney's perspective where we would have a justification and saying that wasn't us? Why do we have to claim all this and pay for it when we had 10 safety meetings on the same exact thing? We had one that morning, and that employee still chose to go out and do it 100% wrong.
Well,
and put themselves at risk.
The way workers' comp is set up it's set up so that the employer doesn't get sued. And so fault never comes into the question. If it's a work-related injury, it's going to be covered by workers' compensation. The problem is workers' compensation, if you're seriously hurt, doesn't provide enough benefit to the employee. Now, there's a workaround, though. If it's co-employee liability, if the employee intentionally does an act that rises to the level of willful conduct, intentionally does an act, then that employee can be held liable, which ultimately falls back on the employer. Those cases are pretty rare, though. They do occur, but they're pretty rare. So workers' comp is really designed to protect the employer. But safety's job one. And on so many of the companies that I've represented, it's so much different. In the oil field, it's so much different than it was 20 years ago. I'm not saying there's not room for improvement. There always is, but it's a lot different. I mean, you really do say safety is job one. You want everybody to have safety goggles, protective equipment.
Within reason. I
Yeah.
mean, there's some things that, like I've been to job sites, it's like 100% glove policy, and we're trying to do nuts. And I mean, it's just, some of it gets ridiculous. No ladders over 4 foot tall. And you're like, how am I going to change that light bulb in the middle of the room because I can't tie off?
Well, and you just go to some retail stores. In the 20 years that I've been doing this, I do a lot of retail, slip and fall retail, things falling off shelves. You go to a lot of retail stores and everything's just at the 4 foot level because that's not going to fall and hit you on the head. And so lots of things have changed to make everything safer, which I don't think is a drawback. I don't know if we're at the point of diminishing return, but I agree with you. There is a point where we get to a point of
I just feel like
return.
we've gotten to the point where we feel like nobody should ever get hurt or die from anything ever. And that's where we've definitely crossed that law of diminishing returns. Because
I mean, if you think, I used to know the statistic, but big projects like the Golden Gate Bridge, that's a big project. Well, if you go to the Golden Gate Bridge, there's a number of people that died in building the Golden Gate Bridge. Big projects, people are going to get hurt, and ultimately people are going to die on those big projects.
now we build projects every day where nobody gets seriously
Right.
hurt. I mean, great
Right.
big projects.
Right.
I'm thinking like the last big one I can think of, City Center in Vegas, and I think a couple people died on that, but that's, $5-8 billion project.
Right.
And you get enough people somewhere, somebody's going to do something stupid.
Right.
It's a guaranteed thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's human behavior is sometimes hard to predict.
Well, I don't have any more questions for you yet.
Okay.
We'll let these guys tear us apart, and they can maybe come back with us and say, hey, you forgot to ask him that, and I'm sure we'll get some questions. But Craig, I really appreciate your time, willingness to sit down with me. And all right, that's all I have for today. So until next time, you have a good dang day.